Cricket Life Stories with me, Neel Khagram, and today we're joined by Chris Lewis. Chris, thank you for your time.
My pleasure.
Really appreciate it. Let's dive straight into it. So, born in Georgetown, Guyana, was cricket always a big part of your childhood?
I think possibly before I even came out the womb, to be perfectly honest. It was just it was a wonderful time in Guyana. The West Indies had some fantastic cricketers. And the whole country, the whole Caribbean, kind of at that time looked to the cricketers as inspiration. So when I came along, I heard about names like Seymour Nurse and Garfield Sobers and Charlie Griffith and Wesley Hall. And then at the same time, the captain of England is Clive Lloyd. You have players like Viv Richards, Joel Garner, Gordon Greenidge. You were inspired as a young man. Everybody in the Caribbean wanted to play cricket, and I was no different.
And your family, were they heavily involved in it?
The boys in our family, the men were, but the women was a little bit different. But once everybody in our village had finished whatever chores they had to do, as kids we went out and played in the road, and a lot of the adults would sit on what we call the veranda and kind of watch us play. So it was a community thing. We all sat down and listened to the West Indies on the transistor radios at the time. It's just something we did as a family, as a street, as a community. Everybody was into cricket. In fact, so much so, I honestly never kicked a football until I came to England.
And what age did you come to the UK?
I came as a 10-year-old.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how was schooling like? That transition, moving from the Caribbean to the UK, different culture.
It wasn't all bad in the sense that a lot of people think that because you're moving to a new country, a different culture, there are challenges, and there were a lot of challenges in
racial issues.
Not so much as a young man. Going to school, we first moved to a place called Harlesden in northwest London. And to be perfectly honest, I think the people were simply too poor to be caught up in that. People were just dealing with their day-to-day life. It was a place where there were a lot of immigrants. They weren't just West Indians, they were Indians, there were a lot of Irish, there was a whole host of people. And my memory as a young boy, it all kind of went quite well. The racial issues perhaps didn't turn up till later in my life, but I think coming to England, certainly from Guyana, it was more an adventure in the sense that at that time, going to England was seen as, and still now, was seen as such a positive thing. It was such a brilliant opportunity. And when you got that opportunity, people encouraged you and they supported you, and it was a positive thing. So coming to England for me as a young boy, even though I was leaving certain members of my family back in Guyana, wasn't that sort of a painful journey. It was more of an adventure. Getting on a plane for the first time. The challenge into school, I think it's the challenges you find perhaps in every new environment. And it's not always down to just purely based on colour. It can be based on class. So we have to adjust to different situations that we, sort of encounter. And for me, it was kind of one of those.
And did cricket help you settle into schooling life, into the UK?
Initially, no, but yeah, 100%. Initially, I think I started to go to school. It was still winter, so there wasn't any cricket. So it was hard work because there were a lot of things I didn't understand. There were a lot of different foods that I'd never encountered. Blancmange, what's blancmange? And little things like that. But then I remember summer came, and then I heard there was a cricket team. And of course I was going to go and try out for the cricket team. And once I made that cricket team, my life was kind of transformed. My school life was transformed because all of a sudden you're the captain of the school cricket team. There's a level, I think, of acceptance perhaps, just in that.
And was your school actually quite sporting? So I did read that Phil De Freitas was a couple of years ahead of you. You had Luther Blissett from the football world.
The school was amazingly talented sports-wise, and we were lucky that at the time we had teachers who went more than the extra miles. Mr. Williams, Mr. Evans, who were in charge of cricket, made sure games were organised, made sure that we took things seriously. So I think that helped us all, you know, in the school, not just myself and Philip, but also Philip had a couple of young brothers who were exceptionally good and perhaps could have been professional cricketers. Junior Clifford was another man who went to Wilson High and also went on to play for Surrey and went on to play for Worcester. We talk about Luther Blissett, and from memory as well, I think Dave Besant also went to our school at that time. So yes, a lot of talented people, but we were fortunate at our school that we had teachers who put a lot of time into us as individuals, and that was our success at the time.
And where did your talents first get recognised from, you know, a level above, you know, just playing school cricket? Did you have county trials? I know you joined Leicestershire in 1987 as a young man. How old were you? 19? 20?
I was 18 at the time.
Okay.
No, I didn't have county trials. I remember my mum sending me, not to trials, but sending me for coaching at Lord's at a weekend. And it's the first time I am 17, and it's the first time I've ever had coaching. I've just simply played cricket until that time. The fortunate thing for me, and the coincidence of that, is that sitting on the balcony was Leicestershire's first team coach, a guy called Ken Higgs, who I suppose you could say, I just assume he's probably talent spotting, as they do in football. And he tells the story that he saw me bowl and he was interested. I don't know what Ken saw, but he saw something. And it was really because of Ken, because Ken called me, or he got Philip to call me and asked me to go to Leicester. I wanted to stay in London, and a few weeks later he called again, but this time was just offering me a contract, which was, for me, was unheard of. Because at the time I was just I was a club cricketer, not necessarily playing first team cricket all the time, playing second team cricket and playing some first team. And here was a guy on the phone.
How did you feel like when you got offered that? Was it something that you were just ecstatic with?
No.
Did you have to think about it twice, ask family?
There was no thought process going on. This guy was offering me, Ken Higgs, was offering me the chance right there and then to fulfill the dream, the only dream I've ever had in my life. And that was to play cricket. I said yes, yes, yes. And I think before I put the phone down, I was already packing to head up to Leicester.
How was your experience at Leicester? You had two spells, but your first one into the game?
My first one is kind of informative in the sense that I've never been in that sort of environment. I've never been in a professional cricket environment, and I've just come from club cricket. So it's a massive, massive learning curve. As I walk into the ground, the first person I see is David Gower and Peter Willey. So let's just say I'm having major inferiority complex, because a couple of months ago I was playing in the park with my mates, and here I am, have to be in the same team as these guys. So that whole experience of Leicester, going there as a professional cricketer, starting to play in the second team, and even scoring runs and taking wicket, was an important part of actually building up my confidence, because I'd never been to those heights before. So it was nice to see that I could be in that company and actually still get runs and still get wickets and not be out of my depth. And until that happened at Leicester, my time at Leicester, I didn't necessarily think I was that good. I was the guy who was going to be a good club cricketer. I was not the one who was going to be a first-class cricketer. And then for me, at 17, 18, it changed, and within a few years, I'm opening the bowling for England.
Yeah, let's move on to England. So in 1990, you get your first international cap, ODI international cap, against the West Indies. Mm-hmm. Now, being originally from the West Indies, how did that make you feel? Proud moments for the family back home as well?
It's that time is the best feeling ever. Not only am I being selected for England, I'm being selected for England not a million miles away from where I was born.
Where it all started, yeah.
Yeah, I identify with the people of the West Indies as my people. The Guyanese, Trinidadians, whoever. And here we were in Trinidad, and I was going to have the opportunity to play to represent England against the West Indies, but also against my all-time heroes. Because I was fortunate enough that Viv Richards was still playing. Desmond Haynes was still playing. You know, Malcolm Marshall was still playing. Gordon Greenidge was still playing. So it was just a mad moment. And I'm away with the England A team in Kenya. Somebody gets injured. I'm selected to go over there. And in such a short space of time, all this stuff came. It was, I wouldn't say overwhelming, it was just fantastic.
Because you get your test debut at home in England against New Zealand as well. Is playing test cricket, in your opinion, the highest honour for a cricketer?
Yeah, definitely. Comfortably, I'll be honest. I love one-day cricket, and I would have loved the opportunity to play 2020. I think it would have been right up my street, so to speak. But hands down, test cricket is the real challenge, the mental challenge. It's the part where you get to explore so many different aspects of a person's personality during the course of that game. And in the end, to come out on top is very satisfying. To score a test 100 as a take 5 for, or to know that you've performed over 5 days. I'm not belittling anything else or any other form of cricket, but that's a real test.
Do you remember who gave you your first test cap and the words that were said to you?
I don't think there was an official ceremony.
Official ceremony?
No, I think back in those days, I think people thought that, you know, when you say you got 30 caps, that people literally handed you 30 caps and you had 30 caps at home or something like that. And I think it was just one of those days where I think it was at Edgbaston, Phil de Freitas was injured, I wasn't going to play, and it was one of those short notice, you're playing. So I don't think there was a ceremony. If there was, I'll apologise now to my skipper, Gucci at the time, but I can't remember there being a ceremony. I just remember that, here mate, you're playing and here's your cap and off you go.
And then a couple of years later, you're in the World Cup final for England. So how was that? So England lose the World Cup final against Pakistan, but how was that tournament as a journey, and for you personally as well? You're opening the bowling in a World Cup final for England.
Listen, I'll say first of all, I mean, the whole of the cricket experience, even before I started playing cricket, has been an amazing journey, an amazing informative journey where you learn so much. And I think we've heard people who've been playing cricket or playing sports for such a long time always saying that there's always more to learn. And I suppose that's the truth of it. But that World Cup journey, again, it was a time of, perhaps for me, being fortunate to be ticking off dreams. Playing first-class cricket, playing for England, and pinch yourself, you're actually in a World Cup final in Australia. So
with the bat, it didn't go too well for you, got out for a first baller?
Yeah, listen, the final didn't go well. We played fantastic cricket as a team. We had a fantastic team in that World Cup. We played really good cricket as a team. And the final perhaps was just one game too far, because as a unit, we didn't really perform. And of course, that's so disappointing. And there's a lot of words I can use to describe that, but I won't, because here we are over 25 years later. So there isn't a need. I look back on it and go, I lost the World Cup final, but I played in the World Cup final. And that's not too bad, and actually more appreciate the experience. But of course, losing any game of cricket, especially a World Cup final, is disappointing.
And then a year later, in the Test arena, you get your first and only Test century, 1993 against India away. Now, did you view yourself as an all-rounder? You know, you were obviously opening the bowling for England, touted as someone that could bat, but you only get the one Test century throughout your 32 Test matches. Yeah. How do you see yourself, well, you know, when you look back at your career?
It's interesting, because there's a lot of stuff in there. I would say the all-rounder is a label. I just always saw myself as a cricketer, and that meant that I tried to do it with the bat, the ball, I tried to do it in the field. So whatever it was, I mean, as a young boy, I even tried off-spin, I tried wicket-keeping. So I just played cricket and wanted to do all part of it. Throughout my career, what I would say is that people have had a lot of opinion about who I should be. And in a lot of cases, certainly now at 50, I'm not even engaging that, because that sounds so ridiculous now I'm saying it. to be perfectly honest. But as regards to the one test century in 30 odd tests, I would love to have got more. I would love to have got 20 or 30. But at the same token, I think somebody, Mike Gattin, how many tests did it take him before he got his first test century? If you see what I mean. So you can pull parallels, or you can take figures and you can kind of suggest a lot of things that you want to, but ultimately a lot of people haven't got even one test century.
Sure.
If you see what I mean.
Yeah.
So you can put it into what bracket you want, and for me it's the proudest moment to know that as a cricketer I was capable enough to get a test century for England, but also to do that in India, which is no small feat. To look at that and go, you know what, perhaps you could have done better, I think is a fair enough thing also. But at the same time, playing 80 odd times for England, I outdid that little boy from the West Indies, all his dreams and his hopes. Because at the beginning, just playing one game of first class cricket would have done me. And to get to the point where I represented England, played in the World Cup, and did all those things, I kind of put it in that perspective, that in a sense I outdid myself. I could have done better, yes, but yet I still outdid myself anyway.
So what was your relationship like with the press back then? I specifically asked that question because I know there was that article written in one of the papers in '94, the Pratt without a hat. Wondering if you just tell the audience kind of the story behind that. I believe it was for charity originally, wasn't it?
I mean, the story behind it, I mean, again, like a lot of these things now, because we're going back in time, a lot of time has gone. It was winter, and we were heading to the Caribbean, and my brother and I decided that we were going to shave our heads for charity. And by that time, I was always, let's say, getting myself into hot water anyway. So I saw a potential problem there. I go and shave my head, and of course I'm going to catch a cold, aren't I? See how this works out?
Cold, yeah.
So of course I don't shave my head. I wait till I get to the Caribbean, and I catch sunstroke instead. So it's one of those stories. But I think my relationship with the press, that suggests there was kind of some of the relationship. The press they do their own thing. They do what they do. If anything, I think perhaps where I potentially got it wrong is that sometimes when you see a story that's not correct, you want to correct people. And in hindsight, you realize that to a large degree, that's not even possible. So you kind of just let it go. But perhaps at times, I got a little bit too involved with what was being said. Because, oh, no, that's not right, that's not true. But with hindsight, you actually understand it's kind of part of the game, and you just kind of let it go, and for your own peace of mind to get on with your stuff.
And then domestically, you've moved from Leicestershire to Nottinghamshire during this period, and then from there you went on to Surrey. How do you describe, your cricket back home and such in the county game? Good experiences.
No, listen.
92 to 95, you're at Nottinghamshire. 95, you joined Surrey.
There are times where I think throughout my life you could see that everything isn't actually going smoothly. That's cricket, because there are times where you're performing and there are times where you're not. But my experience as a cricketer as a whole has been amazingly beneficial. There's nothing negative or even suspect I would want to say about my sport that's given me so much and still gives to me actually today. The whole experience of playing cricket and being in that environment, I'm not going to go and say that all of it was pleasurable, but so much of it was so beneficial, and the learning experience, and there's so much. I've travelled the world because of cricket. I've met so many wonderful people. I've met Nelson Mandela and so forth because I'm a cricketer. So me personally in cricket, it's as beautiful a thing as it's always been in my life, in the sense that, as far as I know, since I was young, cricket has supported me.
But winning trophies must have been important to you. You win the Sunday League and the Benson and Hedges Cup with Surrey. A proud moment again.
Yeah, that was important at that time, because in all the years gone by, I hadn't actually won anything. So it was important to go down to Surrey and be part of a winning team for the first time, but also play my own part. in the Sunday League and in the Benson Hedges to get us over the line, and then leaving Surrey with a heavy heart, because, to be honest, it was a good space and I enjoyed my cricket at Surrey, but just being given the opportunity to go back to Leicester and potentially be captain. And again, like a lot of things, it didn't necessarily turn out as I wanted it to, but I got that experience, and we won the championship. So out of 4 trophies potentially that could be won in domestic cricket, managing to get my hand on 3 of them, that was important, because to have played all my life and not to have actually won a trophy, it would have been perhaps a little bit sad. You want to taste that success.
So you moved to Leicestershire again from Surrey in 1998. If you go back a couple of years, in 1996, that was your last test match for England, as it turned out, against Pakistan. Now, how would you sum up your England career? Before you answer that, let me just read a quote I found from Derek Pringle, who I believe you shared a room with.
I've shared many rooms and many trains with Derek.
So he said in 2008, CB Fry apart, he certainly looked like the greatest all-round athlete the England team had ever had, being quick, agile, coordinated and strong. But just as his body seemed perfect, his mind often appeared a confused mess, and he was remarkably uncertain of himself for a top-level sportsman. Now, that's just one man's opinion, but how would you respond to that? And just how would you look back at your whole career, England career?
I'll be direct, because for me it's an ongoing thing. Everybody has an opinion about how good they think I should be. I think it's a joke. You have no idea who I am. You never did. Nor did any of you ever inquired. But you talk as if you know me, and this is going on forever. I shared a room with Derek. That doesn't mean Derek actually knows me. And what I would say to everybody is this. I played 80 odd times for England. I didn't play 80 odd times for England because I was born a cricketer. I played 80 odd times for England because I put in a lot of hard work. And in a lot of times, people who say I was talented, I noted when I was doing the hard work, they were sat down not doing fielding practice. So how are you going to be good at it? If you see what I mean? And that includes Derek, to be perfectly honest. The things that I had, I worked for. I remember not being able to catch, I remember not being able to bowl. So I find it disrespectful that a lot of cricketers seem to suggest that I didn't work to get to where I was, that I was just naturally talented. And they should all know better, because they all put in work and nobody gets there without work. So I take that as a slight that certain cricketers use, because they should know better.
Yeah, obviously,
you don't
play 80 times for England.
You don't.
You know, just getting that one cap for most people would be the greatest thing. So
indeed. So that whole talk I find very disrespectful, because it's a suggestion that what I had and what I achieved, I simply didn't have to work for. But Derek and everybody else had to work very hard.
And what was your proudest moment playing for England?
My proudest moment of playing for England was literally putting that cap on the first time, because it signified so much. It signified a level of competence that if you didn't have, people wouldn't pick you. So a lot of the chat about everybody else, and in a lot of cases, it's from lesser cricketers, which, and I'm just being perfectly honest, perhaps if you had practiced a bit more and ran around a bit more, perhaps you would have been a better fielder. And I say this now, people said I was a talented fielder, but the whole world is talented now in fielding because they've trained at it. The reason you guys weren't good at it is because you didn't practice long enough.
And who was the best player you played with for England, domestically?
There were so many. I mean,
people you learned from.
Graham Gooch was just phenomenal. How Gucci just went out and he was determined every day, and he fought every day, and in the most difficult circumstances when everybody else was failing, Gucci would get runs. I mean, he was awesome. David Gow, he was just so elegant and so amazingly talented. I remember watching him do slip fielding practice, and literally just off the edges, wherever he wanted. I mean,
from a bowling perspective, yourself?
From a bowling perspective, I think I played a lot with Angus. I played a lot. Yeah, I played a lot with Devon Malcolm. I played a lot with Philip de Freitas, and these were all really, really good bowlers that, on any given day, you would want in your team, you know.
And then moving forward to 1999-2000, that period, you know, I don't want you to say anything you're not comfortable with. Let's just talk through what's already been reported in the press as such. So, in a newspaper article, it's come out that you were approached by an Indian bookmaker to potentially throw a match. It was also stated in these articles that you were asked to tap up Alan Mullally and Alex Stewart.
Well, I think that's a little sort of direct. I think the general gist is that I went to a meeting, and it turned out that business meeting ended up being one where people were trying to fix a cricket match or cricket matches, and I was offered money in order to persuade other England players. And bearing in mind at the time I wasn't actually in the England team, I reported that to the board, and let's just say life got a bit messy after doing that. So
you were told that 3 players in that meeting, was that, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but were you told that 3 players were already involved in match fixing, or?
No, there was a lot of discussion, as in people talk, and bearing in mind I'm speaking to somebody that I don't know. So what's been actually said, how true it is, I don't know, if you see what I mean. So from that position, the only thing I can do is go and say, listen, this is what's been said, and it's kind of over to you. Whether anything that was said in that meeting by those guys was actually true as regards to what they were doing, I don't know. But I was put in a position where I had to report that to the board, and I did that the next day.
And how do you feel the ECB actually responded, in your opinion, back then? I know a lot of time has passed.
It is, we're going over all news, but they responded poorly. They covered their own ass and basically hung me out to dry. So literally from that moment on, within 2 or 3 months, at the end of that summer, I think I had 3.5 years or 3 years left on the contract, but I walked away from cricket. It was a time that I was deeply unhappy. I was receiving letters, but also I was being called Judas and just generally being booed around the county, because the perception is that all that was going on, I was making it up, and somehow I was making trouble. And even at this time, the ECB didn't actually help. They actually threw, you know, fuel on the fire. So at the end of that year, I huffed and I puffed, and I was pretty upset. And really just walked away and left cricket behind. Yeah,
I was going to say, so in 2000, at the age of 32, you left your Leicestershire contract.
Yeah.
So what was life like? I know you said you touched on it there. Yeah. You were down, but
life after Leicester?
Yeah, life after Leicester. Well, no, at 32, you're saying you're getting all this bad press.
Life was just life. I've made a decision not to play cricket anymore, and for me, you got to remember that I wasn't always a professional cricketer. So the idea of just being a normal person seemed to appeal, where you didn't have to deal with all those other stuff. The issue with that is that perhaps you may be limited in skill sets, but never mind. I did different things. I was coaching.
Professionally, amateur?
Amateurly, I was coaching here in Nottingham at the time. I was playing a bit of club cricket in Derbyshire, and eventually I opened an academy with a friend down in Slough for a while. And all of those sort of things sort of took up about 6 or 7 years. So by the time I'm at Slough, I'm 40, and Surrey come knocking.
Yeah, the advent of 2020 has now come
for 2020 cricket. And
you said before you always wanted to get involved.
Listen, I'm thinking exactly the same thing. I'm thinking this game was made for me, and I'm there saying, I used to bowl 25 overs, so how hard can 4 overs be? Yeah.
So you were 40.
I was 40. I was
40. 2008.
Yes, yeah. I was 40 and making my comeback for Surrey in the T20.
So who approached you to come back? How did it work?
It was a funny one. I was still playing some cricket for the PCA.
Right.
So at times you still bump into lads. I'd bump into Bickers and bump into this person and that person because we played for the PCA. And every now and then the boys would look and go, oh, Chris, you're still getting it through. Oh, Chris, you still look in good shape. Oh, Chris, you could still do a job. And over a period of time, that kind of developed till I got a phone call and somebody's going, are you interested? And I'm going, are you mad? Of course I am. And that conversation started, and in a few months, I'm getting ready to play T20 for Surrey. Like some things in my life, that didn't quite go to plan. But again,
it was just age, the fact you hadn't played at the highest level as such for a few years.
I think there was a number of things going on. The idea that perhaps you can be 8 years away from cricket and not play any serious standard of cricket, and after a few nets come back in amongst guys who've been training hard. That's one. Secondly, you talk about that 40 thing. The body simply wasn't the same body. Although I was still slim, that body hadn't been trained properly for a long time.
The mechanics of bowling.
Yeah, it literally wasn't up to that challenge. And I think it was Mark Bettini, I think after the first couple of balls, pretty much showed me that.
Mark Bettini of Essex.
Yes, yeah. Because they disappeared pretty much out to the ground. So, again, one of those things that you tried, but not a bad experience.
No regrets.
How can there be a regret in that? You'd prefer to play the game and it
You'd
go
rather
wrong.
play and find out.
Yeah, than not play the game.
You never know, yeah.
You see? And the fact that we've played that game means that we're here, sitting here 10 years later, having a conversation about it.
Of course. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, no bad thing. It didn't work out as everybody would wanted it to, as in wickets, runs, and actually the Chris Lewis that you signed being the Chris Lewis that was Chris Lewis at 30.
So you were given was it the contract, was it pay as you play?
Yeah.
And how many games did you actually end up playing? Was it?
2.
Only a couple, yeah.
Two games. I played a 50 over and then played that game also, and then simply the body gave in. Somebody got injured and we moved on.
And then a few months later, again, it's widely reported. So again, I don't want you to say anything you're not comfortable with. Let's just say what's been, just widely out there in the press as such. December the 8th, coming from St. Lucia, at the airport, carrying a cricket bag, what looked like tins of pineapple juice. It was liquid cocaine. Now, that feeling when you got caught, how did that feeling?
Here's the thing about that subject. We all know what we're talking about. We're talking about importation and we're talking about cocaine. And we all know that story. But that story is 10 years old.
Of course.
I can't keep telling it.
Of course,
It doesn't work for me. I understand that everybody else is interested in that story. But for me, 10 years later, to keep telling that story, it doesn't work for me on an emotional level. It doesn't work for me on a level that pushes me forward.
Of course.
No avoidance. We all know what we're talking about and importing cocaine, but having to go back over that story every time because of somebody's interest doesn't really serve me. If you see what I mean.
Yeah. So currently you're doing a lot of coaching.
Yeah.
Now, so again, you touched on that that period between 32 and 40. You did a lot of coaching back then, and now we're here in Nottingham. How does that make you feel? Satisfaction in getting back into the game?
It's the coaching path I've been here is kind of coincidental in that friends have started up an academy, and there I am.
Cricket math?
Yeah,
cricket,
no,
was it
MCA.
MCA?
Yeah, yeah. And
Shout out to them. Yeah.
shout out to MCA boys. Yeah, Uzman and Akib.
Uzman Afzhaal?
Yes,
Ex-England cricketer.
So it's Uzman, and I've known Uzi since he was a young man at Nottingham. We played in Nottingham. I've known Akib, who plays very, very good second team cricket, and they started up a new business, and coincidentally, I've actually moved back to Nottingham. So it's working out as a perfect fit where we can all actually get together and use all the experience that we've got over the years of many different things and pass it on. Today, Uz and I were doing a masterclass. We had a club down, and we had teenagers, or youngsters ranging from 11 to 16. And it's so fulfilling to be in a position where you can look at these guys playing cricket and be able to help at a glance, because you can identify things that would make their game better. That's personally fulfilling, but also it's a win everywhere. So it's why I'm here, because you can help, because it feels good, and it's because it's what I know, and I have information to pass on.
And do you have any ambitions to kind of get back into coaching in the professional game?
No, I'm not looking to be a professional coach. My coaching ambitions really is to do with the youngsters, being able to help those youngsters just like today. People who are average cricketers, people who are better than average, but to be a professional coach and to aspire to be in that, that's not my ambition. Where I'm coaching now is exactly where I want to be coaching. To a large extent, at 50, there are a lot of things that are cricket that I'm still involved in, but there are a lot of things that in cricket that I think that I shouldn't be involved in, because times have moved on and you're no longer a cricketer, so to speak. So, no, I'm not looking to spend the rest of my days, so to speak, necessarily at cricket grounds and traveling the world doing cricket, but to be in a position where you can help a youngster at club level or anyone with a word and go, have you tried this, have you tried that? I love that. I absolutely love that. So to come into academies like this where the skill range varies from we had a young lad who's 13 who had never played before to people, of course, who've played, and helping is easy.
And how do you look at the game as a whole at the moment? The current England team, you're winning the World Cup in the one-day game, in the Test arena, perhaps struggling a little bit. You've got the Test Championship in place. A lot of talk about Test cricket going from 5 days to 4 days. Just how do you look at the game as a whole from your perspective currently?
Listen, over the last
healthy
few years,
or
I would say healthy in the sense of people playing cricket, because the one-day stuff, the T20, all those sort of things, has brought a load of people into cricket. People talk to me about cricket who were never interested in cricket. So from that point of view, perhaps people playing and people being interested, and I went to the Oval to watch a T20, and I was amazed the amount of people there, and they weren't all cricket fans. They just came, and I think that's a positive thing, because
bringing the audience in.
Yeah, because I think 100 years from now, to know that there's a game called cricket, how that game may look, we're unsure.
Because you've got the 100 ball coming in, as you say, the game is developing.
It is developing. I think it should, because the game has to serve the demand of the people of the time, and the people of the time now aren't necessarily all got 5 days. So on a personal level, I like certain developments in the sense that it's getting more people interested in the game, and 100 years from now, as long as lots of people are playing a game called cricket, I'll be happy. What that game will actually look like, whether it will be a 5-day test, whether it will be a 4-day test, what it would be, I'm sure that none of us are sure, but I'll be happy just as long as future generations are playing some part of this wonderful game. How it actually goes ahead, who knows? Things need to evolve to keep up with times, to keep up with people. Otherwise, it falls to the wayside.
And then you talk about talent identification. In your opinion, who's the best youngster we should be looking out for in the game at the moment?
Oh, wow. To be honest, it'd be hard to comment on the county game, because I don't see a lot of county cricket these days. But looking from an England perspective, I'm keen on Ollie Pope at the moment. I know he's just got into the team. He's playing.
Touted as the new Ian Bell, but he's just his own man, isn't he?
Listen, I'm not going to say that to anybody, but he looks to me like he's got quality, and he looks to me like somebody who is potentially will learn in that environment and come to terms with it, to be honest. I'm sure there are a lot of other fine young cricketers in county cricket, but I'm not necessarily having that opportunity to see all of them. But I like the look of Ollie Pope, but also I've spoken to a few of the boys down the Oval, and they're impressed. I was impressed, I think last year he'd been out injured for quite a while, and his first game back, I think he got a double.
Double 100, yeah, didn't he?
Yeah, shows character. I noticed that. So, yeah, let's see how he goes. Yeah.
Now, Chris, I really appreciate your time today. Top man. Good luck with the coaching, and yeah, again, thank you very much today.
Neel, it's been my pleasure, sir. Pleasure.
Neel Khagram, Cricket Life Stories, Chris Lewis. Thank you.